Hello friends and welcome. Today I am going to deliver a lecture on immunoelectrophoresis, indirect ELISA, sandwich ELISA, competitive ELISA, chemiluminescence and ELISpot assay. We will start with the brief idea about the process of immunoelectrophoresis. Immunoelectrophoresis, also called as gamma globulin electrophoresis or immunoglobulin electrophoresis, is a method of determining the blood levels of three major immunoglobulins, that is immunoglobulin M, immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin A. It is a general name for a number of biochemical methods for separation and characterization of proteins based on electrophoresis and reaction with antibodies. All variants of immunoelectrophoresis require immunoglobulins, also known as antibodies, reacting with the proteins to be separated or characterized. The methods were developed and used extensively during the second half of the 20th century. Agarose as 1% gel slabs of about 1 mm thickness, buffered at high pH around 8.6, is traditionally preferred for the electrophoresis as well as the reaction with antibodies. The agarose is chosen as the gel matrix because it has large pores allowing free passage and separation of proteins, but provides an anchor for the immunoprecipitates of protein and specific antibodies. The high pH is chosen because antibodies are practically immobile at high pH. An electrophoresis equipment with a horizontal cooling plate is normally recommended for the electrophoresis. Immunoprecipitates may be seen in the wet agarose gel but are stained with protein stains like Comessi Brilliant Blue in the dried gel. In contrast to SDS gel electrophoresis, the electrophoresis in the agarose allows native conditions, preserving the native structure and activities of the proteins under investigation. Therefore, immunoelectrophoresis allows characterization of enzyme activities and ligand binding, etc., in addition to electrophoretic separation. Proteins are separated by electrophoresis, then antibodies are applied in a trough next to the separated proteins and immunoprecipitates are formed after a period of diffusion of the separated proteins and antibodies against each other. The introduction of the immunoelectrophoretic analysis gave a great boost to protein chemistry. Some of the very first results were the resolution of proteins in biological fluids and biological extracts. Among the important observations made were the great number of different proteins in serum, the existence of several immunoglobulin classes and their electrophoretic heterogeneity. Crossed immunoelectrophoresis is also called two-dimensional quantitative immunoelectrophoresis. In this method, the proteins are first separated during the first dimension electrophoresis, then instead of the diffusion towards the antibodies, the proteins are electrophoresed into an antibody containing gel in the second dimension. Immunoprecipitation will take place during the second dimension electrophoresis, and the immunoprecipitates have a characteristic bell shape, each precipitate representing one antigen, the position of the precipitate being dependent on the amount of protein as well as the amount of specific antibody in the gel. So, relative quantification can be performed. Crossed immunoelectrophoresis has been used for studies of proteins in biological fluids, particularly human serum and biological extracts. Rocket immunoelectrophoresis is one-dimensional quantitative immunoelectrophoresis. The method has been used for quantitation of human serum proteins before automated methods became available. Fused rocket immunoelectrophoresis is a modification of one-dimensional quantitative immunoelectrophoresis used for detailed measurement of proteins in fractions from protein separation experiments. Affinity immunoelectrophoresis is based on changes in the electrophoretic pattern of proteins through specific interaction or complex formation with other macromolecules or ligands. Affinity immunoelectrophoresis has been used for estimation of binding constants as for instance with lectins or for characterization of proteins with specific features like glycan content or ligand binding. Two factors determine that immunoelectrophoretic methods are not widely used. First, they are rather work intensive and require some manual expertise. Second, they require rather large amounts of polyclonal antibodies. Today, gel electrophoresis followed by electroblotting is the preferred method for protein characterization because its ease of operation, its high sensitivity and its low requirement for specific antibodies. In addition, proteins are separated by gel electrophoresis on the basis of their apparent molecular weight, which is not accomplished by immunoelectrophoresis, but nevertheless immunoelectrophoretic methods are still useful when non-reducing conditions are needed. Now, coming to the key concepts regarding immunoelectrophoresis. Immunoelectrophoresis differs from blotting techniques because with immunoelectrophoresis, the entire procedure is conducted in an agarogel and blotting is not necessary. Number second, these techniques are based on the concept that near equivalency and antigen, antibody complex will precipitate and become trapped in the gel. Number third, immunofixation electrophoresis is preferred over immunoelectrophoresis because of its greater sensitivity and simpler interpretation characteristics. Number fourth, immunofixation electrophoresis is largely used in medical or clinical laboratories for identifying abnormal monoclonal immunoglobulins associated with diseases of lymphocytes such as multiple myeloma. Number fifth, the abnormal protein bands identified on immunofixation electrophoresis line up with bands seen on routine agarose electrophoresis, making interpretation simpler. Now, let us discuss the next part of our today's lecture, that is ELISA. The enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, that is ELISA, is a test that uses antibodies and color change to identify a substance. ELISA is a popular format of wet lab type analytic biochemistry assay that uses a solid phase enzyme immunoassay to detect the presence of a substance, usually an antigen, in a liquid sample or wet sample. The ELISA has been used as a diagnostic tool in medicine and plant pathology as well as a quality control check in various industries. Antigens from the sample are attached to a surface. Then a further specific antibody is applied over the surface so it can bind to the antigen. This antibody is linked to an enzyme and in the final step a substance containing the enzyme substrate is added. The subsequent reaction produces a detectable signal, most commonly a color change in the substrate. Performing an ELISA involves at least one antibody with specificity for a particular antigen. The sample with an unknown amount of antigen is immobilized on a solid support either non-specifically or specifically. After the antigen is immobilized, the detection antibody is added, forming a complex with the antigen. The detection antibody can be covalently linked to an enzyme or can itself be detected by a secondary antibody that is linked to an enzyme through bioconjugation. Between each step, the plate is typically washed with a mild detergent solution to remove any proteins or antibodies that are non-specifically bound. After the final wash step, the plate is developed by adding an enzymatic substrate to produce a visible signal which indicates the quantity of antigen in the sample. Next is indirect ELISA. Indirect ELISA is a two-step ELISA which involves two binding process of primary antibody and labeled secondary antibody. The primary antibody is incubated with the antigen followed by the incubation with the secondary antibody. However, this may lead to non-specific signals because of cross-reaction that the secondary antibody may bring out. Number first, microvalve plates are incubated with antigens, washed up and blocked with BSA. Number second, samples with antibodies are added and washed. Number third, enzyme-linked secondary antibody are added and washed. Number fourth, a substrate is added and enzymes on the antibody elicit a chromogenic or fluorescent signal. Now coming to the indirect ELISA advantages. Number first is the high sensitivity, that is more than one labeled antibody is bound per antigen molecule. Number second is flexible, that is different primary detection antibodies can be used with a single labeled secondary antibody. Number third is cost saving, that is fewer labeled antibodies are required. In the indirect ELISA test, the sample antibody is sandwiched between the antigen coated on the plate and an enzyme labeled antispecies globulin conjugate. The addition of an enzyme substrate chromogen reagent causes color to develop. This color is directly proportional to the amount of bound sample antibody. The more antibody present in the sample, the stronger the color development in the test wells. This format of indirect ELISA is suitable for determining total antibody levels in samples, that is Newcastle disease virus, B. abortus, etc. Now, let us discuss the next part of our today's lecture, that is sandwich ELISA. The sandwich enzyme linked immunosorbent assay is a sensitive and robust method which measures the antigen concentration in an unknown sample. The antigen of interest is quantified between two layers of antibodies, that is the capture and the detection antibody. These antibodies must bind to non-overlapping epitopes on the antigen. Either monoclonal or affinity purified polyclonal antibodies can be used as capture and detection antibodies depending on the cost, the dynamic range and the sensitivity of the final assay. The steps are: number first, a surface is prepared to which a known quantity of capture antibody is bound. Number second, any non-specific binding sites on the surface are blocked. Number third, the antigen containing sample is applied to the plate and captured by the antibody. Number fourth, the plate is washed to remove unbound antigen. And number fifth, a specific antibody is added and binds to the antigen, hence the name sandwich, that is the antigen is stuck between the two antibodies. Number six, enzyme linked secondary antibodies are applied as detection antibodies that also bind specifically to the antibody's Fc region, that is non-specific. Number 7, the plate is washed to remove the unbound antibody enzyme conjugates. Number 8, a chemical is added to be converted by the enzyme into a color or fluorescent or electrochemical signal. Number 9, the absorbance or fluorescence or electrochemical signal, for example current of the plate wells, is measured to determine the presence and quantity of antigen. Now, let us try to learn about competitive ELISA. A third use of ELISA is through competitive binding. The steps for this ELISA are somewhat different from the first two examples. Number first, unlabeled antibody is incubated in the presence of its antigen, that is sample. These bound antibody-antigen complexes are then added to an antigen-coated well. Number third, the plate is washed so unbound antibodies are removed. Number fourth, the secondary antibody specific to the primary antibody is added. This second antibody is coupled to the enzyme. Number fifth, a substrate is added and remaining enzymes elicit a chromogenic or fluorescent signal. Number six, the reaction is stopped to prevent eventual saturation of the signal. Now coming to the applications of ELISA. Number first, presence of antigen or the presence of antibody in a sample can be evaluated. Number second, determination of serum antibody concentrations in a virus test. Number third, it is used in food industry when detecting potential food allergens. Number fourth, it is applied in disease outbreaks, that is tracking the spread of disease, for example HIV, bird flu, common colds, cholera, STD, etc. Next part of our today's lecture is chemiluminescence. Chemiluminescence, sometimes called as chemoluminescence, is the emission of light, that is luminescence, as the result of a chemical reaction. There may also be limited emission of heat. Given reactants A and B with an excited intermediate, that is A plus B gives excited state, which gives products plus light. For example, if A is luminol and B is hydrogen peroxide in the presence of a suitable catalyst, we have C8H7N3O2, that is luminol, plus H2O2, that is hydrogen peroxide, gives 3 times APA in the excited state, that is amino phthalate, which gives 3 times APA plus light, where 3PA is 3-amino phthalate and 3PA diamond is the vibrionic excited state, fluorescing as it decays to a lower energy level. The decay of this excited state to a lower energy level causes light emission. In theory, 1 photon of light should be given off for each molecule of reactant. This is equivalent to Avogadro's number of photons per mole of reactant. In actual practice, non-enzymatic reactions seldom exceed 1% quantum efficiency. Chemiluminescence differs from fluorescence or phosphorescence in that the electronic excited state is the product of a chemical reaction rather than of the absorption of a photon. It is in the antithesis of a photochemical reaction in which light is used to drive an endothermic chemical reaction. Here light is generated from a chemically exothermic reaction. A standard example of chemiluminescence in the laboratory setting is the luminol test. Here blood is indicated by luminescence upon contact with iron in hemoglobin. When chemiluminescence takes place in living organisms, the phenomenon is called bioluminescence. A light stick emits light by chemiluminescence. Now coming to the applications. Number first is the gas analysis for determining small amounts of impurities or poisons in air. Number second is analysis of inorganic species in liquid phase. Number third, analysis of organic species useful with enzymes where the substrate is not directly involved in the chemiluminescence reaction, but the product is. Number fourth, detection and assay of biomolecules in systems such as ELISA and Western blots. Next, DNA sequencing using pyrosequencing. Next is lighting objects, combustion analysis, children's toys, and last, glow sticks. Now, let us discuss the last part of our today's lecture, that is ELISpot assay. The enzyme-linked immunospot assay is a widely used method for monitoring cellular immune responses in humans and other animals and has found clinical applications in the diagnosis of tuberculosis and the monitoring of graft tolerance or rejection in transplant patients. The ELISpot technique has proven to be among the most useful means available for monitoring cell-mediated immunity due to its sensitive and accurate detection of rare antigen-specific T cells or B cells and its ability to visualize single positive cells within a population of peripheral blood mononuclear cells. The ELISpot method was developed by Cecil Zerkinski's group in Gothenburg, Sweden in 1983 for the purpose of detecting antigen-specific antibody secreting cells in a B-cell ELISpot assay, which was a modification of a traditional sandwich ELISA immunoassay. The ELISpot assay has since been more widely adapted for the identification and enumeration of cytokine-producing cells at the single cell level, but is still used for detection of antibody secreting cells. Simply put, at appropriate conditions, the ELISpot assay allows visualization of the secretory products of individual activated or responding cells. Each spot that develops in the assay represents a single reactive cell. Thus, the ELISpot assay provides both qualitative and quantitative information. Due to the exquisite sensitivity of ELISpot assay, analysis of the frequencies of rare antigen-specific cells within a test population, which had been impossible to perform prior to its development, have now become relatively simple. This exceptional sensitivity derives from the mechanics of the assay method itself. In an ELISpot assay, the membrane surfaces in a 96-well PVDF membrane microtiter plate are coated with capture antibody that binds a specific epitope of the cytokine being assayed. During the cell incubation and stimulation step, peripheral blood mononuclear cells are seeded into the wells of the plate along with the antigen and form a monolayer on the membrane surface of the well. As the antigen-specific cells are activated, they release the cytokine, which is captured directly on the membrane surface by the immobilized antibody. The cytokine is thus captured in the area directly surrounding the secreting cell before it has a chance to diffuse into the culture media or to be degraded by proteases and bound by receptors on bystander cells. Subsequent detection steps visualize the immobilized cytokine as an immunospot, essentially the secretory footprint of the activated cell. Now coming to its applications. Number first, it is a sensitive immunoassay. Number second, it measures secretion of cytokines. Number third, it is easy to perform. Number fourth, it is robust and easy to standardize. Number fifth, it is suitable for large scale trials also in field settings. That is all about today's lecture. Hope you have understood it well. Thank you very much and goodbye.